I never planned to tell this story, not because I'm afraid of what happened, but because part of me knows it isn't over. Some nights, the silence still feels too sharp, too aware, like it remembers me the way I remember it. And before it finds me again, before the voices start repeating like they used to, I need to warn someone, anyone who might listen. Because everything began with a simple question, a question I didn't understand until it was too late. It began the night I first wondered, have you ever heard your own voice in a place where you absolutely should be alone?
Not like a normal echo, not like shouting into a tunnel and hearing the sound bounce back. I mean, hearing yourself speak hours after you've already said the words. That's what started the whole thing. People in my town still call it a glitch. The older ones call it a curse. But kids? Kids have another name for it. They call it the Echo Kid. It was a Tuesday, one of those slow school days that feel like they last a week. I came home, dropped my backpack in the hallway, and muttered to myself, I'm so done with this day. I didn't even think about it. I always talk to myself when I'm alone. Little comments, stupid jokes, whatever. The house was empty, my parents were working late, and the sky outside was already turning gray. I microwaved some leftovers, put on a random video, and scrolled on my phone until my eyes started to burn. Around 11, I finally turned everything off and went to my room. Nothing strange, nothing creepy, just another boring night. Until it wasn't. Sometime after midnight, I woke up for no reason. No nightmare, no noise, no bright lights. Just that weird feeling that your brain flips on like a switch. The house was completely silent. I rolled over, checked my phone, 12:47 a.m. And that's when I heard it. From the hallway, faint but clear, in the same annoyed tone I'd used hours earlier. I'm so done with this day. My voice. Not like kind of like my voice, not similar to my voice. It was exactly perfectly mine. Every syllable, every breath, every tiny crack in the middle of the sentence. For a few seconds, I just lay there, too stunned to move. You know, your brain tries to find the easy explanation first. Maybe I'd left the TV on. Maybe a video was playing from my phone. Maybe a neighbor's sound was echoing through the walls. I got up, heart pounding just a little too loudly, and stepped into the hallway. Nothing. Dark, quiet, ordinary. The TV was off. The kitchen was empty. My phone was still on my bed. I told myself I had dreamed it, went back to my room, and forced myself to sleep. The next morning, it already felt stupid. Scary at night, funny in the daylight. I didn't mention it to anyone. Why would I? But that night, it happened again. This time, I know I was awake when I said it. I was gaming, lost a match because of a lag spike, and I yelled at my screen, "Are you kidding me?" It was around 9 in the evening. At 1 in the morning, I woke up to a familiar voice shouting from the living room, "Are you kidding me?" Same frustration, same sudden break in the last word. Same voice. Mine. The sound was wrong, though, not loud like an echo. It was like someone was standing there, facing the TV, playing a scene of me on invisible speakers. I didn't go check this time. I just lay in bed, listening to my own pulse, and pretended very hard that I was asleep. The next day at school, I couldn't keep it to myself. I told my friends at lunch, half joking, half waiting for somebody to admit they'd pulled a prank on me. Instead, the table went quiet. One of the guys started laughing too loudly, overacting, trying to break the tension. Only Mia didn't laugh. She just stared at me, her fork frozen halfway to her mouth. Then she leaned in slightly and asked, almost whispering, "How many times?" I frowned. "What? How many times has it repeated you?" I shrugged. "Twice, I guess. Why?" She bit her lip, looked around as if teachers were eavesdropping, and said, "If it reaches 3, don't answer, no matter what it says. Got it?" That should have been the moment I asked more questions. That should have been the moment I listened. But I rolled my eyes. "Mia, come on. You're not helping." She hesitated, then added in a flat, serious voice, "I'm not joking. Just don't talk back to it." All day I kept thinking about what she'd said. Don't talk back to it. It. Like this was a thing, a known thing. When the last bell rang, I caught up with her in the hallway. "What did you mean, how many times? Has this happened before?" She didn't look at me. "To some people." "Who people?" She shifted her backpack. "People who talk alone a lot, people whose rooms are quiet, people who won't be missed for a few hours if something feels off." The answer chilled me more than anything I'd heard in the dark. "Okay, seriously, Mia, are you messing with me?" She finally looked up. Her eyes weren't playing. "You know that kid who transferred last year? The one everyone says just moved away because of family stuff?" I nodded slowly. "He didn't move. He stopped answering." She walked away before I could say anything else. That night, I tried to keep my mouth shut. No talking to myself, no comments, no cursing at lag. Every time I almost said something, I clamped my lips together. My room felt strangely loud in its silence, full of all the words I didn't let out. I fell asleep around midnight. At 2:13 a.m., my phone lit up with a notification. I blinked, grabbed it, and that's when I heard it. From right outside my door, barely muffled by the wood, my own voice said, "Okay, seriously, Mia, are you messing with me?" My heart stopped for a whole second, then tried to make up for it by sprinting. That was the third time, third night, third replay. I stayed frozen. The boards in the hallway creaked as if something shifted its weight. Then, closer to the door, my voice repeated the sentence, slower this time, testing each word like someone trying on clothes in front of a mirror. "Okay, seriously, Mia." Another slow step. "Are you messing with me?" I squeezed my eyes shut, every muscle locked. I could hear breathing now. Not mine. Deeper, heavier, with a strange double sound, like two breaths layered slightly out of sync. Something leaned against the other side of the door. The wood clicked softly.
My phone screen dimmed, and in that sudden semi-darkness, the room felt less real, and the voice felt more real. Then my own whisper slid under the crack of the door, low and familiar. "Why did you stop talking?" I didn't answer. Inside my head, I screamed, but my mouth stayed shut so tight it hurt. The breathing continued for a while, long enough for my eyes to water, long enough for my jaw to ache. Then the weight moved away. The floor creaked again. Silence. Eventually, I slept. The next day, I couldn't focus on anything. Every sound made me flinch. Every time I opened my mouth, I imagined my words being recorded, saved somewhere I couldn't see. At lunch, I told Mia everything. This time, I didn't joke. She listened, face pale. "You're in it now," she said quietly. "Once it copies more than one sentence, it learns your rhythm. That's when it starts to experiment." "Experiment with what?" "With new lines," she said. "At first, it only repeats what you've said, like a delayed echo. That's why people ignore it. It's creepy, but it's still you. Then it starts to adjust, rearrange, stitch words together. And then, she whispered, it talks first."
I thought of the whisper at my door. Why did you stop talking? I asked her how she knew so much. She glanced at the empty chair next to us. There should have been someone sitting there, a guy who used to be in our class. I realized I couldn't quite remember the sound of his laugh. "Some people listen to stories," she said. "Some people live them." I pressed her. "What am I supposed to do?" "Don't feed it," she said. "No more random talking when you're alone. No more phone calls at night. If it speaks first, ignore it. If it starts asking questions, pretend you're asleep. And if I can't," she took a deep breath, "then make sure someone hears you before it does." That night, I did something I hadn't done in years. I turned on a small lamp and left it on. My room glowed in soft yellow, not enough to chase away shadows, just enough to make them look tired. I put on a podcast at low volume, just enough human voices to break the silence without making it hard to sleep. I messaged Mia. "If it talks again, I'm calling you," I wrote. She answered almost immediately. "If it talks again, don't call me. Call your parents. Call anyone nearby. It doesn't like witnesses." The word witnesses sat in my chest like a stone. Around 1:30, I started dozing off. The podcast voices blended into mush. My phone slipped from my hand onto the blanket. Somewhere between waking and dreaming, I heard it. Not from the hallway this time, from inside the room. My own voice, perfectly awake, perfectly clear, spoke right next to my ear. Have you ever heard your own voice in a place where you absolutely should be alone? Every hair on my body stood up. It had started using my newest memories. It was stitching from the beginning of the story. I stayed still. The podcast was still playing on my phone, but the volume dropped like someone was slowly turning a dial. The room cooled. The voice spoke again,
standing just behind my headboard now. Not like a normal echo, a slow step. Not like shouting into a tunnel, another step. And hearing the sound bounce back. Each sentence was pulled directly from my mind, not from the room. I hadn't said those words out loud since the first night this started. I realized something then. It wasn't replaying my voice from the air. It was replaying my voice from me, from my memory, from inside. The breathing leaned closer. I mean, hearing yourself speak, my own whisper said, inches from my ear, hours after you've already said the words. Something invisible brushed my pillow. My instinct screams at me to run, to shout, to swing wildly at the air. Instead, I remembered Mia's flat, serious voice. Don't answer. So I didn't. The silence between us stretched. Even the podcast seemed to pause, as if the whole room was holding its breath, waiting for my reaction. Then softly, my voice changed. It dropped lower, almost kind, almost hurt. Why are you ignoring me? No answer. Another beat. I'm you. Nobody talks to you as much as you do. Nobody knows what you think. Nobody listens like I do. It shifted again, closer, right at the edge where my fear turned to something else, to a twisted curiosity. If you talk to me, I can talk for you. I can answer for you. I can be the one who speaks when you can't. You never have to be quiet again. That promise, it slid into my thoughts like a key into a lock. How many times had I wanted someone to speak for me, to answer the teacher, to stand up to people, to say the perfect thing at the perfect time? All I had to do was say one word. Yes. Maybe that was all it needed. I clenched my fists under the blanket until my nails dug into my palms. I focused on the pain, on the tiny burning dots of real physical sensation. The voice waited and waited, and then finally it laughed. It was my laugh, but bent, stretched, slowed down like a recording played at the wrong speed. It said, "You're still thinking in words. That's enough. I don't need you to speak. I already know how you sound." The lamp flickered. The air beside my ear grew warmer, like someone leaning in to tell a secret. "You don't have to talk," it whispered. "I already learned how to speak." The bulb in the lamp popped. The room fell into darkness. And from the hallway, in my father's tired voice, I heard, "Hey, kiddo, you awake? We need to talk." Except my father was on night shift. He wasn't home. The handle of my bedroom door began to turn, slow and careful, like whoever was outside already knew I was listening. I stayed silent. The door opened just a crack, enough for a slice of shadow to slip through. Then my own voice, calm, patient, terrifyingly gentle, spoke from the doorway. "If you won't talk to me, I'll talk to them instead." So if you ever catch yourself talking alone in an empty room, cut it out. Because somewhere in the quiet, something might be listening. Something that doesn't just repeat you, something that's waiting to replace you.